Hey, what's up? This is Marcus and we are back with another video on the channel. Today we'll go over the team that I used at the Turin Special Championships. And well, you probably saw it if you were following along how it ended, but yeah, we will come to that in a bit. But it was a decent run. I finished in the top 32. And let's have a look at what team did I chose to bring to the event, why did I bring it. I will go over some basic game plans and then also talk about how my rounds went. So yeah, without too much further ado, let's jump into it and have a look at the team that I used to finish in the top 32 of the Turin Special Championships. So here we have the 6 Pokemon, and before we talk about too much else, I need to give a big shout out to Emanuele Briganti, very, very powerful, strong trainer from Italy who won the very first regional championships in Frankfurt at the beginning of the season. And he basically helped me to settle on these exact same 6 Pokemon. Now, I had been testing around with the core of Mega Floette, Incineroar, and Sinistcha for quite a while, but it is not that easy to figure out how to round it out. Of course, there's the team that won the Indianapolis regional championships that had a Charizard-Y mode, but yeah, I wanted something that could maybe use the Sinistcha a little bit more, and Charizard-Y plus Sinistcha isn't really, yeah, it's not really that like good of a combination if you bring them together. And so, yeah, I was trying different things. I was trying Mega Garchomp, I was trying the Delphox, and then in the end, yeah, Emanuele kind of convinced me, or we convinced each other to use Charizard-X in that slot. And I will talk about the reasoning behind that decision for a bit. But I was also pretty happy that I would get to bring, yeah, a cool Pokemon like Charizard-X to a big tournament. And of course, my Worlds invite was pretty much locked already. So I was going into this tournament mainly focusing on getting some practice on Pokemon Champions in a tournament environment. And then I was also, of course, there to, yeah, cheer for my friends and to also just, it's always fun, of course, to be at a tournament. So even though there wasn't like too much on the line regarding, like there was no prize money as this was a special championships, and also I didn't really need any championship points, I was still looking forward, of course, to competing. And whenever I compete, I want to be able to do well, and I thought that this team would be a good call for the tournament. Now, here we have some of the details about the team. Now, of course, this was also a tournament that was played in the open nature format that we now have. And so, yeah, they had to extend the overlay a little bit, and you can see the natures now below. Most of the natures are pretty standard, but there are a couple that I want to point out here before we talk about the Pokemon and the movesets in detail. But first of all, so I was running a Sassy Incineroar, and this is just because, yeah, I wanted to opt out of the fake-out kind of speed wars. And instead of having to guess, oh, which Incin is going to be faster, I just wanted to be sure, okay, I'm going to be as slow as possible. And so my parting shot will go last, will go second. Of course, this isn't that great against Throat Chop, because then they also know, okay, they can just go for the Throat Chop. So that's something to watch out for if you're thinking about running this team. But Sassy, yeah, just allows the Incineroar to take any hit, and then you can parting shot out. And then, for example, with a Pokemon like Sneasler, you don't want to bring in Sneasler when the opponent can still attack on the turn, because then, yeah, Focus Sash would be broken. So instead, yeah, slow parting shot, and then Helping Hand is there to, yeah, just support the other team members. And since Helping Hand has such a high priority, it doesn't really matter what the nature is. And then talking about Sneasler, Sneasler is the other one that I think needs to be talked about with the naive nature, lowering your special defense intentionally, and this is there to combo with Unburden. Once again, shout out to Emanuele who came up with this, since, yeah, it allows you to play a little bit more comfortably into Glimmora and Whimsicott teams. Those were a little bit problematic in my initial testing with the Floette team, just because, yeah, Glimmora can sit there, can throw out some sludge bombs, does good damage, and then yeah, with the Toxic Spikes being around, you cannot pivot out and in with Incineroar and Sinistcha like you want to do. But with this Unburdened Sneasler, you could actually kind of sit there against Whimsicott and Glimmora, go for the Dire Claw into the Whimsicott, and then even if Glimmora kind of predicts this and goes for the Earth Power, then you go down to the Focus Sash thanks to Naive as the nature, and then next turn, even if they set up Tailwind, you will be faster than the Glimmora. So it didn't actually come up in the tournament at all for me, I think. Maybe one time I went down to Sash when I wouldn't have otherwise, because it also improves the rolls against Heatwave from Charizard-Y. But overall, yeah, it didn't really have a big impact, but was just like a tiny optimization to help in the matchup that otherwise is a little bit tricky. When looking at this team at a glance, you will notice that it is a dual Mega team. We have the Charizard-X and the Mega Floette, and both of them, they kind of complement each other really nicely with the typing. Floette struggles against steel types. Charizard can take on any steel types. And, well, whenever there is like a neutral type matchup, Mega Floette just has incredible stats, and with Calm Mind and then upon Mega Evolution with Fairy Aura, the stats are boosted even further. So, well, Charizard struggles with, like, I don't know, rock types. Floette doesn't care about rock types and, like, usually has a good matchup into almost anything, especially when paired with Incineroar and Sinistcha, which just have such great synergy with Floette. Because, yeah, Incineroar lowers attack with Intimidate, of course, and Floette doesn't have the greatest defense stat, while we have a good special defense, and we boost the special defense even further with Calm Mind. And then Sinistcha provides healing, it provides redirection. Against Sneasler, for example, it's great to have Rage Powder on the Sinistcha. And then also Floette can use Draining Kiss to heal itself. So yeah, those three, Floette, Incineroar, and Sinistcha, just a very great core. And then with Charizard-X, we can also kind of use the same support package, but we'll come to that in a second when we talk about game plans. The Sneasler is there as the secondary fake out option, so having dual fake out is just something that I'm very comfortable with. Well, Rillaboom isn't in Pokemon Champions yet, but Sneasler also does a great job there. And then Sneasler is just very fast, it hits hard, with a Focus Sash can take one hit, and so it's a really nice tool to be able to trade, and also can help against opposing Floettes. And then Kingambit is kind of the last kind of glue to the team. There is another version of this exact same team that is using Milotic in the slot, and I was also thinking about that, but in the end decided to go with the Kingambit because it has Sucker Punch as a priority move. The team overall is kind of slow. There's no immediate speed control besides Trick Room on Sinistcha, but without Kingambit, yeah, what are you setting the Trick Room up for? Or maybe the Incineroar? Maybe the Sinistcha itself. But Kingambit with the priority is great to have. And then also just typing-wise, it ties kind of nicely into it. Well, it has one problem, but we'll talk about that in a second. And just having an additional way to hit Floette hard, that's also great. So yeah, we opted to go for Iron Head and dropped Low Kick, which would be nice to have against opposing Kingambits, but with Charizard and Sneasler, we already, and Incineroar as well, we already have good coverage against Kingambit. So yeah, that's the team overall. Now let's have a look at some of the defensive synergy. I already mentioned one of the issues of the team is if you use Kingambit in that slot. Well, we have 4 weaknesses to ground type attacks, and usually I would not recommend to run more than 3 weaknesses of the same type, but on this team in particular, it kind of works. One reason is the fact that Charizard, before it Mega Evolves, it actually has a ground immunity. So there are some positions where you actually don't go for the Mega Evolution right away, but instead you keep the original Flying and Fire typing, for example, against Choice Scarf, Garchomp. This could be a way to force them to lock into a weaker move, and then you can use the Mega Evolution to change the typing there. It wasn't really a big problem for me in the tournament. I guess the most common ground type Pokemon is Garchomp, and against that we have Incineroar and Sinistcha. And yeah, Sinistcha was able to get some burns against Garchomps during the tournament, and also can just heal up. We have Incineroar as well, and Floette, of course, also does really well against Garchomp. So I wasn't too worried about Garchomp, but yeah, typing-wise, you have to watch out a little bit against ground type attacks. Other than that, I think the synergy is pretty good if we look at it. One other thing to note is the lack of fairy type resistances. This is also part of the reason why we really wanted to have Kingambit with Iron Head. So that, yeah, with Iron Head and with Dark Claw on Sneasler, at least we had 2 ways of hitting opposing fairy types, whether that's Floette or Sylveon, to hit them for super effective damage. But yeah, no resistances, but no weaknesses either. So usually fairy type attacks are special, and so we can just use Floette to set up against them. But in the tournament, I actually played against a physical fairy type, and that unfortunately didn't go too well. But yeah, we'll come to that in a little bit when talking about the individual matchups. Before that though, let's have a look at some of the most basic game plans. So of course, this isn't everything that you can do with the team. The team is pretty flexible in how you can bring each of the members, but there are two main strategies that you can go for with this team. First one is full setup, and with full setup there's two different modes. First one is, well, you can go for the Floette setup. Usually I would say maybe like 90% of the time, if you want to go for a Floette-centric game plan, you want to have Incineroar and Floette in the lead, and then Sinistcha and Sneasler in the back. Then you can go for Fake Out and Calm Mind. Then you have Intimidate down, you have the special defense boost up, and then you can play from there. You can either protect the Floette and then switch into Sinistcha if you need to heal, or switch into Sneasler if you want another Fake Out for the next turn. And then you just have Floette stay on the field for as long as it can, ideally until the end of the battle, and then the other slot usually cycles around. It's a very, very common kind of setup that is used in VGC quite a bit, where you have one Pokemon that sets up and then the other three members kind of cycle in and out to support it. Of course, it's also possible to do this in a slightly different way. Like, for example, you could also lead with Sneasler and Floette. This would be done if there is maybe an opponent who has their own Floette that you maybe want to threaten away, or if for some reason you just really don't want to lead the Incineroar. Maybe they have, I don't know, Kingambit that you don't want to give the Defiant boost to, so then you can also lead with Sneasler, and in theory it's also possible to bring Kingambit in the back, but here I'm more talking about the full setup centric game plan, and this usually works best, having the double Fake Out and redirection and healing from Sinistcha. And the beautiful thing about this team is the fact that you can also do the same thing with Charizard. So you would, lead Charizard-X and one of the Fake Outs, usually Incineroar, and then have the other Fake Out and the Sinistcha in the back. This is also a very, very powerful mode that you can go for, where if your opponent gives you an opening to set up Dragon Dance, then you can do the same thing. You can bring in your other Fake Out, then you can go for another Dragon Dance, or you use Fake Out on one target and KO the other. And Charizard-X is also just very, very powerful. And the healing from Sinistcha also kind of synergizes nicely with the recoil damage that Charizard takes. So one of the issues with Charizard-X is the fact that it takes so much recoil damage from Flare Blitz. And with Sinistcha you can offset that a little bit. And you can also then, redirect any attacks that try to go into the Charizard so it can go for more Flare Blitz. Overall, I think over the course of this tournament, I used the Floette setup mode a little bit more often, but I also used the Charizard setup mode quite a bit. Floette is mostly effective if you feel like your opponent doesn't have more than one Pokemon that really threatens the Floette. Usually, like, one Pokemon you can deal with the double Fake Out and the Sinistcha. But if there is like two real big threats, then it's a little bit more difficult. But for example, sometimes you could even get away, like I would bring Floette, or I could bring Floette against Venusaur and Charizard, so two Pokemon that resisted. But if you're smart, then you could still pull through, even though like the type matchup doesn't look great, but Floette is just so powerful, and with the extra setup, sometimes you can even power through some teams where initially it would look like, oh yeah, maybe Floette isn't the best here, but it could still do it. But of course, well, in that example against Charizard and Venusaur, the Charizard-X mode might be a little bit better. It just comes down to what you expect your opponent to bring, which mega you think they will bring. But overall, these are the full setup game plans. And then the other style that this team can also play in is more like a trading style, where you don't rely on getting an advantage with setup, but instead you just, try to play smart, try to trade damage, so that eventually you can KO their Pokemon a little bit quicker than they can KO yours. And this style can be done with Kingambit. Kingambit is a great Pokemon for this style because, as I said, it has Sucker Punch as a priority move, and also just has really nice bulk, where it can usually take at least one attack, especially with a Chople Berry. And so one option, this isn't the only option, you could also lead this with Incineroar and Kingambit, but one option would be to lead the Kingambit with Fake Out, and then in the back you bring the other Fake Out and any of the other Pokemon. Now, you might ask yourself, well, are you actually ever going to bring Sinistcha here as the fourth Pokemon? And yes, in fact, I did bring it. I brought no Mega as the mode, I think 2 or 3 times over the course of this tournament. This was when I really thought that, okay, my opponent cannot really break through King Gambit if I just have all the support for it. So we don't have Sword Stance, so it's not like a classical kind of setup mode. But yeah, if you can support King Gambit and you feel like, okay, King Gambit can go all the way, then this is also one way that you can go for. And then you would just try and trade smartly. It's hard to describe how to play this style because it's not as straightforward as the setup style. But yeah, you would just do more damage than your opponent, ideally. And then there are also many other options that you could go for. As I said, Incineroar and King Gambit is another way. For example, with Sneasler and Charizard-X. I put this here just as an example because I thought it was funny that you can actually get away with bringing all the 4 ground-type weaknesses. I think I also did this once, but this is just like a placeholder. Like, all the pieces kind of combo really well together. And yeah, maybe there are a few things that I wouldn't do. Like, typically you don't want to lead Sinistcha, but you can do it. And I also led Sinistcha in the tournament, so yeah, it's hard to say really what you're supposed to do because all the members are like pretty flexible. And yeah, but these are some of the main things that I would be looking to do when picking up this team. And now let's start with my tournament run. So I'm sitting down. It's the first tournament of Pokemon Champions in Europe, but of course there already was a big tournament happening over in the US in Indianapolis, and the winning team is the team that I faced round 1, and I lost. I played against Gabriele, and they were a pretty strong player. I think I looked up their name before the round and saw that they finished in the top 16 at the regional at some point. I didn't know them before, but I already knew that, okay, this is going to be a challenge. It's a strong team, and Venusaur is one of the weaknesses of my team. So yeah, I knew that it was going to be tough. I have my notes with me here, so I can go over what happened. But basically, yeah, I lost pretty badly, to put it shortly. In the first game, they were opening with Venusaur and Charizard, and I went with Incineroar and Charizard, so focusing on the Charizard mode. And I was like debating my turn 1, and I didn't really know what to do because, well, Fake Out and Flare Blitz would threaten the Venusaur, but if they just protect, then of course they could go for a Heat Wave and do some damage. Meanwhile, I could also predict maybe a double protect, maybe go for a Dragon Dance or switch out the Incineroar. And in the end, I decided to go for like a little bit of a read because I thought, well, it's round 1. I don't know. They don't really know what to expect from me. So I am going to expect a protect from the Venusaur. So I went for Dragon Dance on my Charizard and went for Parting Shot into their Charizard. But there was no protect. The Venusaur clicked Sleep Powder. I fell asleep. And then the next turn, there was some more Sleep Powder and Heat Wave, and from there on, I just couldn't really come back, and lost. And then in the second game, it was a very long and drawn out game. They went with Incineroar and Charizard with Venusaur in the back, and I managed to get Dragon Dance up, and funnily enough, I managed to KO their Charizard with Flare Blitz in the sun, if I'm not mistaken. But then in the end game, I still lacked a little bit of damage against the Venusaur, and they got a couple of calls right where they protected the Venusaur when I tried to attack it, and they went for Sleep Powder again. And I think they missed one at some point, but still they managed to defeat me. I would have loved to try out the Floette mode against this team as well, because I think that can also work, but I tried to go for the Charizard, and it didn't quite work out because they played really well. Finishing the tournament then at 3-3 in the end. But starting the tournament with a loss. And one thing I need to notice as well, at the end of game 2, as I said, I was there to also just get some practice with Pokemon Champions, with some of the way the game works, some of the mechanics. And in the second game, in the end game, I was in a losing position already, but I was like, oh, well, maybe what if I can try and I don't know, stall for time or something. So I let my time run out. And so in Pokemon, there's 3 different timers. There's an overall game timer, then there's a turn timer, and then there's also your time, which is a 7-minute timer that you have for all your moves for the entire match. And my your time timer was like getting kind of low, and I entered the turn with 10 seconds in your time, but then at the end of the turn it said, oh, your time ran out and I lost. So unfortunately I couldn't clip that, but well, I did clip it, but in the 30 seconds clip it wasn't shown how much your time I had starting the turn with. So yeah, I was very confused with that, and also with some of the other stories that I heard from the event. Just makes me think that maybe going for a timer isn't the most reliable. But yeah, no matter how it went, well, either way I lost, and I was okay taking the loss to Gabriele there. Sleep Powder is a good move. It did hit. And so, yeah, I'm starting the tournament with 0-1. And then I was like, okay, well, now I played against the Venusaur. I knew it was going to be kind of tough. So then I checked my next round opponent, and once more, it was going to be against Venusaur and Charizard-Y. So already I was like, okay, well, let's see how that goes. Well, it did go a little bit better. You can already see that I won this round, but it still was a 3-game set. And my opponent, they played pretty well, because I think they went for Sleep Powder into my Sinistcha twice. Well, I'm checking my notes, because you won't guess what happened in the next round after that. Or which you won't guess which Pokemon I played against. I think this was the round where my opponent went for Sleep Powder into my Sinistcha twice. So for this round, I was like, okay, well, I did go with the Charizard mode in the previous round, and it didn't work. And now my opponent has Aerodactyl, so I will try to go for the Floette mode in this round. And that's what I did, and yeah, it worked out better. I won the first game, but then I think they also maybe I think they missed Sleep Powder in one of the games, which was helpful. But their Aerodactyl was White Herb. So this was quite interesting, because usually I can go for Incineroar and Floette, Intimidate, Aerodactyl, then it doesn't really do any damage. But with the White Herb, it was spamming Rock Slide, and it was fast. And it was strong. Sorry, I meant to say it was strong, because with the White Herb, the Intimidate did stick. But yeah, I won the first game with Floette, then lost the second game with Floette. And then in the third game, I brought Charizard and managed to win. And yeah, so it was a close set, but I managed to bring it back. So now I'm 1-1 at this point in the tournament. And then I come back to my round 3, and I checked the team sheet of my opponent. And I was like, okay, finally I'm out of Venusaur jail. But nope, it was another Venusaur and Charizard. This time playing against Matteo, who also was playing well. They had a White Herb Sneasler that they brought to both games, but I think they missed Sleep Powder at some point. And I also, once again, I switched up. I went for Floette in one game and then Charizard in the other game. And yeah, it worked out. They didn't bring the Melodic, so yeah, that wasn't a factor. I think I got lucky with something, but I don't remember now. But yeah, I won both games. Now it's a little bit of a blur, because I played the same kind of team composition 3 times in a row. But I was happy going into this next round now with a 2-1 record. And it's one of those matchups where, again, both works. The Floette mode works, and the Charizard mode also works. And then we come to round 4. And round 4, yeah, now I played against the physical fairy type that I was hinting at earlier when we discussed the type chart. And they also had the Floette. So they have 2 fairy types, and I don't have any fairy resistances. So I already kind of knew that this was going to be a little bit challenging. First game, they lead Aerodactyl and Kingambit against my Incineroar and Floette. And so already it's like, okay, well, they get the Defiant boost. It's not great. But usually I can kind of play out of this, because if I can boost up Floette and I have Flare Blitz on Incin, like usually it's okay to give the boost to the Kingambit, especially considering this one didn't have Iron Head. So it had Low Kick, Sucker Punch, and Kowtow Cleave. So I was like, okay, my Floette is going to be fine. I will fake out the Kingambit, I will set up Calm Mind, and then I can play from there. So I do that. Aerodactyl goes for Rock Slide, and I flinch. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. I can like reposition. I don't remember exactly how the turns went, but I go for a Calm Mind again, and I flinch again. And then at that point, I was like, okay, that's not good. And then the +1 King Gambit also starts kicking Kowtow Cleave into my Floette. I was like, okay, I shuffle around, I reposition again. Rock Slide, Floette flinches again. So they got 3 flinches on Floette, and yeah, I tried to make something work. I went for like a hard read. I hard read their double protect and like self-draining kissed myself as I switched into my other fake out to like give my Floette health so that it could like stick around after all those flinches. But yeah, it still wasn't quite enough, and I lost game 1. The second game, I went for the same game plan, and it kind of worked out. And they switched things up a little bit. They went for Aerodactyl and Floette in the lead, maybe also understanding that, okay, with a King Gambit, you're like stuck on the field there against my Floette, so Floette can put on, some more pressure on it. But I managed to get up the Calm Minds, I didn't flinch, and I won. And then the third game, it's Aerodactyl and Floette against my Incineroar and Floette, and I go for the fake out Calm Mind play. They go for the Rock Slide, and I flinch. And I'm like, okay, that's not good. So I need a reposition. I switch out Floette into Sinistcha and Parting Shot. And they Rock Slide. And it doesn't flinch the Incineroar, but it crits the Incineroar. And they go for Light of Ruin, which KOs my Sinistcha. So I go for the Parting Shot, but now I'm 30% Incin, no Sinistcha, damaged Floette, and Sneasler in the back against 4, and I didn't do a single HP of damage yet. Well, the recoil from Light of Ruin on Floette, but that was it. And I still almost managed to come back, but in the end, they had their Mimikyu, and Mimikyu, like, it hit, I think it needed to hit, like, 2 play roughs, which, yeah, isn't too crazy. But I broke the disguise, then went for +1 Dazzling Gleam, KO'd their Aerodactyl, but the Mimikyu lived on 2% and then hit the final play rough. So I barely lost. But yeah, Rock Slide is a little bit of a weakness for this team, and it definitely showed. So yeah, my opponent understood that that's what they needed to do. They got the flinches, and yeah, I didn't get flinched in the second game, so that was also lucky by me then. But yeah, I lost this one. So I was like, okay, well, Steep Powder and Rock Slide, well, that's kind of like some of the weaknesses that I knew about the team, but yeah, like, it's okay, like, yeah, let's just keep on playing, and let's see how it goes and what I can still do. Going for like phase 2 wasn't really on my mind anymore, because like, yeah, like with 4 rounds left in phase 1, like you can always like still lose another one. But of course, I'm gonna try. I will try to make it as far as possible and get some more insights about champions. So round 5, I play against Matthew, who was using this team that I was very familiar with, because 2 of my friends actually used it in the same event, and they were talking about it beforehand. So this is the team that got top 8 at Indy by William Brown, I believe. And I think Carson Confer also ran it. And yeah, so it's an Espathra Baton Pass team that also has like a strong non-Baton Pass rain mode with the Sneasler and the Mega Dragonite. But I was kind of ready to face this team, so I just went for like setup with my Floette. And I think I went to like +3 in the first game and +2 in the second game. Yeah, then I can just go for like Helping Hand, Dazzling Gleams, and this team doesn't really have a great way of stopping that. And one of the like main ways that they have to deal with Floette is the Scovillain. But if you have the healing from Sinistcha, and also if you don't get too greedy with your Floette, or if you know when to attack and when to Draining Kiss, when to like Dazzling Gleam, like I could kind of handle the Scovillain quite nicely, because yeah, sure, it's going for Leech Seed, it will burn me, but if I make sure that I delay the burn as long as possible, and then I'm already boosted up, like it can't really do that much damage with Overheat, and I can also stop it from moving with my Fake Outs. So yeah, Floette just went crazy here, and I won 2-0. So we're now 3-2. And next round, I'm up against Mega Gardevoir. So now, finally, I'm hitting some diversity in terms of my matchups. Played against Donald, and yeah, he was also a nice guy. Like all my opponents this day, I thought were really nice, and we had a little chat about Scotland, and yeah, that was fun. But this also is a team that I had some experience with. I used something similar in some of the early days of Champions, and I knew that it would be tough for them to deal with my Floette. Especially, once again, their King Gambit didn't have Iron Head. It was low kick. And yeah, I went for the Floette setup mode, and it worked out nicely both games. I think there was like one moment where I had to watch out a little bit against the Gardevoir, because I, of course, also boosted with the Fairy Aura. And Hyper Voice is pretty powerful. But I think it was the second game where I transitioned into Trick Room at some point. So I would use my Sinistcha and set up Trick Room for my King Gambit. And then that dealt with their team pretty nicely. So yeah, overall, I was happy with how it went. Also, because they didn't bring King Gambit, my Incineroar could just very, very freely go for Intimidate, Parting Shot. So that was good as well. So yeah, now I'm 4-2 and am going up against another Italian player next round. And this one was so close. Like, it really came down to the wire. This was a Mega Scovillain team and also had Mega Aerodactyl. I was familiar with this team. I knew that it did well at Korean Nationals, for example. I know that I think Chandy Holmes built the original version of this. And then Joey Poke-Aim also finished 10-2 at Indy with the same 6 Pokemon, I believe. But it's a tough team. It's a pretty tough team. And my opponent played it really well. They used Moody on their Scovillain to just protect, and they just didn't Mega Scovillain in the first game. And it was getting some Moody boosts, which was tough. And I brought Floette, but I managed to, I think I made some risky play at some point, but I managed to set up the Floette, and then I could, redirect from the Basculegion with my Sinistcha, and then I also could deal with the Sylveon. So yeah, like Floette won the first game. And then for the second game, I thought that I would try to go with the Mega Charizard against this team. Like, it depends a little bit on which Mega they bring, but I was like, oh, I think they will go with Scovillain once again. So I brought the Mega Charizard, and they had Scovillain again, so I was happy to see that. But the Scovillain with Moody, it got a defense boost. So +2 Scovillain. And my Pokemon are Incineroar, Charizard, Sinistcha, King Gambit. So how do I beat a +2 defense Scovillain? Well, yeah, I could use my Charizard, but I used it to KO their Sylveon with Flare Blitz, then took a lot of recoil. I think it was on a switch-in. And then the Scovillain started to go for like Leech Seeds, and eventually he was able to knock out my Charizard. And he also brought Aerodactyl, but he megaed the Scovillain, but then also had the Aerodactyl. Then he kept going for a Rock Slide, and eventually my Charizard goes down. And I couldn't deal with the Scovillain because it was +2. And then I crafted this amazing plan of transition into like a Trick Room mode, and then using my slow Incineroar with Flare Blitz to get rid of the Scovillain. But then I realized Scovillain also got a speed drop. So as I'm in the position to go for Trick Room, I realized, well, I can't go for Trick Room because Scovillain is quite slow, and with the -1 speed, it's going to outspeed my Pokemon under Trick Room. So I had to kind of adapt and try to do it without Trick Room. And I kept intimidating this Aerodactyl, and it was like on the field at like -4 or something, just clicking Rock Slide. And then fortunately I didn't flinch that often, and I managed to like I kept getting healing with a Sinistcha, and the Scovillain was also at -4, at some point -5 from Parting Shot and also from using Overheat. So it was also not really threatening anything. But I couldn't afford to attack the Scovillain with my King Gambit because, of course, it would get burnt. And their last Pokemon was Basculegion at the time. So Sylveon was down, and it was those three. And yeah, the game kept going on for like way longer than I thought it was going to be. And eventually I could like kind of force them to swap out the boosted Scovillain because I managed to get Incineroar into position, and then I was healing up with Hospitality and Leech Seed. And Leftovers, and I was denying their Leech Seed by going for like switches and Parting Shot. And so eventually they realized that they couldn't really make any progress with a -4 Aerodactyl, -5 Scovillain. So they swapped out the Scovillain, and then that allowed me to go and execute my Trick Room plan from earlier, because as it came back in, it didn't have the speed drop anymore, and it didn't have the defense boost anymore. So I went for the Trick Room plan, and then I got the KO with Kowtow Cleave on the Scovillain. My King Gambit gets burned, but he has Basculegion left and Aerodactyl left, and he cannot really touch my King Gambit anymore. But then he logged into Aqua Jet and managed to KO my Incineroar with Aqua Jet Rock Slide. And so in the end, it was a 1 versus 2. My Kingambit burned almost at full against his Basque Legion at like 60% and his Aerodactyl at -4 attack. And I went for Sucker Punch. No, sorry, I couldn't go for Sucker Punch, sorry, because they locked into Aqua Jet, which wasn't doing a lot of damage because the Basque Legion was also -1. But I went for Kowtow Cleave, and it didn't KO the Basque Legion. And every time I click Kowtow Cleave, of course, they could also flinch me, and I'm burnt, so I'm taking some chip damage every turn. But Rock Slide was doing like 4 HP damage or something like that every turn. And the Aqua Jet also wasn't doing so much. So eventually, I managed to go for another Kowtow Cleave, knock out this Basque Legion, so it's a true 1v1. Then the timer starts appearing on screen as well. And fortunately, Kingambit didn't flinch. They kept going for Rock Slide. It didn't flinch. Went for Iron Head. Went for another Iron Head, and I won. So, yeah, it was a very, very exciting game. Went to only 2 games, but it felt like it went to game 3, and it was like, yeah, it was really fun playing against Simone. The moody boost on the Scavillain was definitely something, but yeah, I managed to barely overcome that. So now I'm 5-2, and I am part of the community vote for the who goes on stream for the win in. And my opponent, yeah, with the Mega Feraligatr team, meant that, yeah, we got enough votes, so we played this one on stream. Yeah, if you want to check that out, definitely do that. Part of the official live stream there, around 8. But yeah, if you haven't seen the games already, I will spoiler how they went in a second. So if you want to watch them, go ahead. But yeah, now I'll spoil the result. So I went for the Charizard game plan, Charizard against Feraligatr. I thought it was like too cool of an opportunity to pass up, having the 2 Mega Dragons face off against each other. But Charizard, of course, has the speed advantage, and I used that to kind of always be 1 step ahead of them, where I cycled my fake out around the Charizard, and I managed to just always like have fake out pressure or KO pressure on something, and so they couldn't really get into positioning for the Feraligatr. So yeah, game 1 I won with the Charizard, and then game 2 I went with the Floette against their Aerodactyl. And then I didn't go for the setup mode this time, but I went for like some trading mode. So I went for Dazzling Gleam with a Floette to put things into KO range for Dazzling Gleam later. And yeah, then I didn't flinch on the crucial turns from the Rock Slide, and so I managed to win and to move on to phase 2. And in Europe, for some reason, we're playing an extra round. So we're playing the first round of phase 2 on the first day. It's confusing, I know. But that meant that even after this round 8 set, there was still going to be 1 more round of the day. And I was up against Hard Trick Room. So it took a little bit of time to get everything ready, because they need to confirm the results. Then they need to like team check all the people that haven't been team checked yet. And then I was going up against this Hard Trick Room team. And they also had like some really cool approach where they didn't mega their Kangaskhan for quite some time, and they kept the Scrappy ability. So I couldn't intimidate them, and usually my game plan here, if they lean into the Kangaskhan, is to use Incineroar and Sinistcha to go for like intimidates and then heal up the damage that it did. But yeah, they just stayed scrappy, and that made it pretty tough. So I lost the first game because of this. But I managed to kind of adapt to their style a little bit, because in the first game they made a like kind of hard read and swapped in their Torkoal on a turn where I could have attacked it or I could have gone for Parting Shot, but I didn't. And so then they had the Eruption pressure, and so I knew that I needed to be a little bit more careful around that going forward. And yeah, but it worked out, and I got the win in the second game using like Floette mainly. And then in the third game, I swapped up my lead a little bit, because I was like, okay, they're not going for the Mega Blastoise. They went for Kangaskhan and Farigiraf twice. And they also did it for the third game. So I led with Incineroar that game instead of Sinistcha. And so then I managed to get Parting Shot down. And then they still didn't go for the Mega. But this time I was prepared, and I kind of just got a parting shot on it, and I went for some Rage Powders with the Sinistra, and without the Mega, it just didn't do enough damage, so I could boost up with the Floette. And so then they revealed that they had Blastoise in the back, actually, which I thought was quite cool, so they brought dual Mega in this game. But yeah, I was boosted up on the Floette, and so then I could win from there. So I ended the day with another win and finishing the day at 7-2. Definitely felt great, because yeah, it meant that I was still in contention for Top Cut at X&2. I had a stream match. I got to show off Charizard-X against the Feraligatr, so I was pretty happy at the end of day 1, and then went to get some food with my friends. We got some really good ice cream, so yeah, it was a good day for sure. And then yeah, we get there on the next day, and it's 3 more rounds of Swiss, and I know that it's going to be tough, but I didn't know just how tough it was going to be, because I played against one of the best players in the world at the moment, Théotie Massot from France. And I hadn't ever played against them before, I think, but I knew from some previous regulations that they liked some of the similar teams, so I wasn't surprised when it was revealed that we would play a 5-mon mirror, only difference being that their fire type was Delphox, and I had the Charizard-X. And yeah, as I said earlier, Delphox is also something that that we had tried to complement the other 5. So yeah, I knew it was going to be tough, and I was ready to kind of make some hard reads or make some plays from the very beginning. And so turn 1, I went for Sneasler and Kingambit lead in game 1 to maybe put some pressure on the Delphox, because yeah, Kingambit is the best Pokemon on my team to deal with the Delphox, and Incineroar can do something as well, but because I don't run Throat Chop, I can't really hit it for much damage. And this was a Nasty Plot Psyshock Delphox, so yeah, not what I wanted to see, because with Psyshock it can go through my Floette, as Psyshock hits on the physical side. And so if both of us boost up, then they will win that race in the end. So I was going with the Kingambit lead and ready to go for, I went for Fake Out on their Sneasler on turn 1, maybe thinking that, oh, maybe they will go for like Protect Close Combat with their Sneasler and Delphox lead. But they went for Fake Out, and they won the speed tie, so they faked out my Kingambit first. And yeah, things were already looking quite tough. But their Delphox went for Protect. And so we talked about this afterwards, and Théotie was pretty sure that he locked in Nasty Plot and didn't time out or didn't lock Protect. But yeah, I don't know what happened there. Delphox used Protect, and then I managed to get into like a really crazy position where the Delphox kept boosting. So the Delphox was at like +4 at some point, I think. And my Kingambit was boosted as well from his Incineroar, so I was +1. And it was a game of like, oh, when am I going for Sucker Punch? Who will get the Fake Out positioning? And we kept cycling, and I got the call right, where like I had Fake Out active, and I thought, oh, he's gonna Protect this turn, so I'll switch into my other Fake Out. And I got it right, but then he got the double Protect, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And then we played some more, and we got in the same position again a couple turns later, and I got it right again, but he got the double Protect. So yeah, that was rough. But then on one of the turns where it seemed obvious that I was going for like a Protect and repositioning play, I just went for the Sucker Punch, and that was the turn where Delphox finally attacked. And so yeah, I got a couple of calls right, but also I think I got a bit lucky somewhere along the way. But yeah, I managed to win the first game, which of course felt great. But then in the second game, I got completely annihilated by this Delphox. Yeah, I just like completely lost. And so then in the third game, yeah, I don't remember all the details, but it was pretty close once again. But this time I brought Charizard-X in the back, and I managed to set up Charizard-X, get the Dragon Dance in on a positioning where Delphox was already damaged. Everything was already damaged, I think. And then it was between, oh, is the Delphox going to Protect against my Fake Out pressure? Or can I go for, like, just a Dragon Claw and knock it out? And I was like, oh, he's probably going to Protect here, so I'll go for Dragon Dance. But he made the right call, and he attacked with the Delphox and went for Psyshock. But my Charizard fortunately lived on, like, low HP. And then I managed to set up, like, a Sneasler and Charizard endgame where I could, like, Sneasler takes care of Incineroar and their Sneasler, which was at 1 HP, and Charizard can knock out the Delphox. And yeah, it was very, very close. I didn't know some of my damage calculations on the Charizard-X there in the end game. And so, yeah, maybe it was better to just attack instead of going for the Dragon Dance read. But yeah, it worked out. And so I managed to barely win this one. Okay, so 2 wins away, but yeah, I'm not really thinking about top cut or anything, but I'm thinking about what's my next opponent gonna do and what can I do to them now that I just played a mirror. But you know what is better than a 5-mon mirror? A 6-mon mirror. I played against Francesco, who had the same 6 Pokemon with some slight differences. It was coaching on the Sneasler and breaking swipe, interestingly enough, on the Charizard-X. I think those were some of the main differences. I didn't take too detailed notes about this one because, well, I know what this team does. And they were also Poison Jab on Sneasler, which I thought was quite interesting because, yeah, with the reduced chance on Dire Claw, Poison Jab also has a 30% chance to poison. So then 30% from that and then another 30% from Poison Touch, which is what they were running, gives you decent odds, or like 51% to get the poison. And so I thought that, yeah, maybe this is an interesting idea, that to kind of rely on the poison, because Para isn't that strong anymore in this generation, and Sleep is also got nerfed a little bit. So of course getting the Sleep is nice, but getting the Para can actually hurt you sometimes. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I went with a Kingambit-centric game plan because I realized that with their Charizard-X, they had Breaking Swipe and Flare Blitz. So they can't really spam Breaking Swipe because they would, yeah, not really do much damage, and they would boost my attack. And then I can maybe kind of redirect the Flare Blitz maybe at some point with Sinistcha, which of course would go down to Flare Blitz, but then they also take a lot of recoil, and then I can get the KO with my Kingambit. So that was kind of like roughly my game plan going into this one, and yeah, it worked out well. I won 2-0. In the second game, I got a little bit lucky where my Dire Claw got 2 poisons, both on their boosted Charizard-X and on their Sinistcha. And then I could just like guarantee, just like take the game slow and let them like let them go down because he didn't have Life Dew on the Sinistcha. Yeah, I was pretty happy that I managed to overcome a strong player using the mirror. Yeah, with that, I was 1 win away from making it to top cut, and my last round opponent was going to be Alberto Nogarol from Spain, who I have briefly worked with on Life Orb Raging Bolt in Regulation Set F. So if you were around and saw some of my videos there with the Life Orb Raging Bolt team, yeah, I worked with him on this. And while the result is already spoiled, I won the round. But the matchup was quite tough because this is a Scizor, Mega Scizor, Rain team, and Mega Scizor, of course, does well against Floette, and Rain does well against Charizard-X. So I don't really have great Mega option for this game. And I had to make some reads against the Basque Legion specifically, where I think in both games I kind of called his move correctly, where it's like, oh, I think this turn he's gonna Wave Crash into my Floette or into my Incineroar, and I switched the right target into Sinistcha, and then could play from there, and then I managed to get into positions both games where Floette could boost up, and I had the support next to it from Incineroar and Sinistcha to keep it around, and then in the end, yeah, could deal with the Scizor with some boosted Dazzling Gleams. So yeah, it still came down to, like, in the second game he had a chance to maybe get a double protect, but he doesn't get it. So I win the game. I'm 10-2, and I'm in the top cut, right? 10-2. I did it. I won every single game in phase 2, but yeah, then we already knew, like, going into this tournament from the numbers that there was quite a lot of players. And with the new system that we're having for this season, only the top 16 makes it to the top cut, even if there are more players that have an X-2 record. And I was checking Pokestats, and I saw that my resistance wasn't really good. I didn't really think about this until this point because I was just like, yeah, taking it one game at a time. But yeah, my resistance wasn't that good because, yeah, well, I started with 2 losses early yesterday or the day before. And so I realized that, oh no, oh no, I'm dropping in the standings, even though I'm 10-2, and in the end I finished 17th. The first person to not make it into Top Cut due to opponents' win percentage. So yeah, the rule for the season is that, as I said, only 16 people can make it into the Top Cut. This is determined by whatever score has the 8th person, and then you put as many people that have the same score all the way up until it's reached 16. And so in this one, I was, the one of 3 unfortunate persons alongside Davide and Lorenzo, who had a, I would argue, pretty incredible tournament. 10-2 is pretty good, especially in my phase 2. I played some really strong opponents, and throughout the tournament, I think I had actually like decent opponents. Like let's go back and check the teams I played against. Like most of them were reasonably standard. I realized I didn't play against a single Whimsicott, so that was quite interesting. Just with what I was expecting from the metagame. Like there weren't any free wins in here at all. As it goes, the opponents of the opponents of the other people that also finished 10-2 had better records. And so, in the end, I finished 17th place. Yeah, which still is a record that I'm proud of, that I'm happy with. But of course, I would have preferred to maybe play an extra round or play a play-in round against Nicolas to see who actually makes it into top 16. I also talked about this in my podcast, VGC Reflections, that I have with Aaron, Cybertron, Zhang. So definitely check that out in the description below if you want to hear me talk about that a little bit more and my thoughts about this. Yeah, but that's going to be it for now. That's my tournament run for Italy. I hope you enjoyed learning about my team and my run. Once again, shoutouts to Emanuele, and I will link his Twitter in the description. Also, my socials are down there. And if you like this type of content, of course, make sure to leave a like, comment. Did you have any takeaways from Regulation MA? Are you preparing for any IC right now? Let me know in the comments, and then I'll see you for some more Champions content on the channel. So stay tuned for that, and bye-bye.